Okay, so OSI layer from the perspective of troubleshooting. So in the next slide, I have demonstrated one image that is basically representing all 7 layers of the OSI model. And let's start from where which I would like. Let's say from the application layer first of all. Okay, so as you can see, and we have already talked about what happens at the application layer. The user usually interact with the web browsers or email, something like that. Okay, we have so many other things as well, but most of the time we are having or dealing with uh, these web applications, okay, or the applications. So network process to application. So as you can see, we have DNS, we have www, we have point to point, we have email, pop, SMTP, telnet, or FTP. So if maybe these all layers are working pretty fine, then you have to check maybe application layer is not working because some firewall is there. Okay, so you have to go through many steps to double check why DNS is not working, why my web application is not working. Maybe the browser is outdated. The application you are trying to run on is not compatible with that browser. I have faced this thing so many times. Under the email, maybe you are not going to provide the mail exchange server properly. Okay, then maybe the FTP you are trying to access for the server, maybe the port 20 is closed. Okay, so many things you can think on application layer, and the application layer is going to be most hectic as compared to the other layer, because the application layer is where most of the protocols, as I have mentioned over here, are working, and maybe your firewall is in place that is uh, preventing accessing the applications. Under presentation layer, and we know that whatever, for example, if you are trying to search some website like google.com or jobskillshare.com, it is going to convert all those data into the presentation in some kind of encryption format. So as you can see, recognizing data like HTML, doc, JPEG, MP3, AVI, and sockets. So these all formatting is gonna happen at presentation layer. So if your application is working fine, means there is no any kind of firewall involved, everything is working fine, but you are going to get some kind of gibberish data. So it means this is a clear understanding you are having some presentation kind of issues, maybe the compatibility issue. One system can understand the format of JPEG, the other not. Then we have a session layer. It established the TCP, SIP, RTP, RPC name pipes. Okay, so as you can see, just you can imagine that this is one source and this is destination, and it between we have these routers, and then this computer wants to communicate with this system, but meanwhile some session or the bridge is created between these two devices. Then only the data can be sent or received. But if this bridge is broken, if the bridge or the session is broken, do you think your data will be transferred? No. If the establishment is not there, if the session establishment is not there, there is no way you can communicate. So at the session layer, you have to worry about maybe session cookies. Cookies. If you're not familiar with the cookies, kindly Google it and check what cookies are. And whenever these days it is very common practice. Whenever you are going to search any website, they always ask you to accept cookies. So this is the main idea. Cookies will not only having the session ID, but they will also keep the information of track if you are searching some contents from that cookies. So that is why sometime you also come across with this situation or the scenario that in a few days back you search about some, for example, flights, booking flights. Maybe you wanted to reserve some flights for some destination, and then after week you just close the session and then you just open the any website. You will see on the right or left bar you will be seeing some advertisement related to your flights. This is why, because your computer saved that cookie with that information that you previously you were searching for those flights information. So that is why on the basis of that, so companies are very intelligent. They are using cookies for their advertisement purpose as well. That all happens at session layer. Then we have a transport layer. As you can see, these two persons are moving forward to send this information from here to here and then vice versa. It means we are going to transport end-to-end data from one source to another destination. And most common protocols that are being used are TCP and UDP along with ports. And by the way, we have 1 to 1024 and then one from 1025 to 65535. These are well-known ports. Well-known ports. And these are not well-known ports. Not well-known ports or random ports. Why do we need these ports? We will talk about briefly in the next section. But just bear with me. In transport layer, we will be talking about TCP and UDP along with the ports. Okay, so we have to send information from source to destination in a correct format. Then this is again, maybe if you are not able to communicate with other device, maybe this could be using a firewall. And by the way, most of the organization currently they block UDP because most of your communication like Zoom, Teams meeting, YouTube. Okay, so such kind of these all they are using RTP real time protocol by using UDP because this is unreliable, and we will talk about TCP and UDP in the next segment. But just keep it in mind. If you are having some transport kind of issue, just make sure that ports are open on receiver end and the TCP and UDP are working fine. It is not blocked. And the network layer, as you can see, path determination and logical addressing. And most common things that happens network layer happens is routers. And I told you when source want to read destination, for example, this is the server of job skill share server. Source want to reach to the destination, but uh, in between we have thousand and thousand of routers. It could be some ISPs routers. So your path is not going to follow the same pattern. It could have multiple paths. This is because of redundancy and plus optimal routing because you want to reach to the destination from the best path. And in between, if routers have some kind of issues, for example, we have like IP related issue. Maybe we are using some kind of BGP protocol, because BGP is the protocol that is being used for internet gateways. Let's suppose BGP is having some kind of flush issues. It has flushed all DNS, or maybe the router is damaged, or something happening. It is a clear indication that network layer is getting failed. So whatever, and the source, there is no problem. There is no problem with the firewall. There is no problem with the destination or transport layer. This is the problem in between, which is network layer. Then we have data link layer, and you can see at data link layer we are using switches, and these are manageable intelligent devices, by the way. So what could be the issues here? Could be the issues with the MAC addresses, and we could have many issues. So if there is any problem at the data link layer, you immediately need to go into the switches and take a look at that, what is going on. So as you can see here, this has to do with the physical addressing. It could have router MAC, or even the switch MAC, or even the router. Sorry, this is the router that is being used at a home. But if I'm talking about the ISP, these kind of routers are being used in ISP. And routers also have MAC address. In the future videos, I will be talking about why do we need logical addressing, why we are going to use logical address plus physical address together to make communication happen. Without physical address, logical address will not work, and for without logical address, the physical address will not work. And we know that logical address is IP and physical address is MAC. So they both will go hand in hand to communicate with any device on the network. And why? We will talk about later. In the end, we have physical, and as I said, I told you earlier with the scenario, the first thing you have to check is the physical cabling. And this is fiber, by the way. You need to properly check whether this cable is working or not. And let me tell you another scenario or situation that I faced. I checked one of the employee whose internet was not working. RJ45 cable was working fine, and it was plugged into that console of RJ45, and there is a green LED was blinking, but internet still was not working. Then I went to troubleshoot these all other upper layers, but it didn't work for me. Why? Because this is why it is called first clearly check the physical cabling. When I clearly took a look of this RJ45 color coding, for example, we have these cables connected with plugged with this RJ45, and maybe two of the cables were loose. So just imagine how painful it was for network administrator. So these two cables, because all connectivity was there, so that is why LED was blinking fine. But two cables or two wires out of these 8 wires were loosed. So that is why it was not working. So the solution was I just ripped it off. I just ripped it off, and then I spliced it again. Then it worked. Okay, so you can come across many situation scenarios once you will be working in a production environment. So let's do a Wireshark demo, and I'm going to see you in the